He texted me on our daughter's 20th birthday. I won't be home tonight. I need time to think. I stood in the kitchen, the candle on her birthday cake still flickering from her breath. The room smelled of chocolate and strawberries, filled with laughter from just moments before. I stared at the screen. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I simply stared because deep down, I had already known. My name is Lan. I'm 48 years old. I've been a mother for 2 decades, a wife for 25. People used to say we were the perfect family, nice house, nice car, loving husband, a daughter who grew up with ballet shoes and violin lessons. To outsiders, we looked complete. And for a time, we were. Hung, my husband, was my best friend. He held my hand in the delivery room, whispered that I was the strongest woman he knew. Every Sunday, he brewed my favorite tea and sat with me on the balcony while we read quietly. We had inside jokes, little glances across the dinner table, lazy weekend mornings tangled in each other's warmth. We built a life together. Not grand, not glamorous, but full of meaning. But somewhere between school drop-offs and work deadlines, something shifted. He started coming home later. First it was meetings, then client dinners. Eventually no explanations at all. The warmth in his voice faded. His laugh, once so full, became polite and distant. And his touch used to feel like home. Now, it felt like obligation. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I had stopped being interesting. Maybe I had aged wrong. So I tried. I changed my hairstyle. Twice. I bought new dresses. I lit candles at dinner. I cooked his favorite meal, clay pot caramelized fish, just like his mother used to make. He said it was good, but didn't finish his plate. I even suggested we take a weekend trip, just the two of us. He said work was too busy. Still, I tried until the day I noticed the scent. A new cologne, subtle, musky, not the one I had bought him for our anniversary. Then came the new shirts, fitted, stylish, branded. He hadn't shopped for himself in years. And the gym. He hadn't stepped foot in a gym in over a decade, but suddenly, he was going 3 times a week. He said it was for health, but it wasn't my health he cared about. His phone, always in his hand, always on silent, always face down, always locked. Once I tried to ask, gently, "Is something wrong between us?" He looked up from his phone and said, "You're overthinking again." And that was it, dismissed with one sentence. At night, he'd lie beside me in bed, scrolling through someone, while I lay there, wide awake, wondering who was I now, not just to him, but to myself. Was I still a wife? Still a woman? Or had I become invisible? And yet, every morning I got up, made breakfast, drove our daughter to school, smiled through family gatherings, laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I kept the house running like a ghost keeping a home for the living. Until that message on her birthday. "I won't be home tonight. I need time to think." That was the moment I realized he wasn't coming back because maybe he had already left. The call came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I was folding laundry when my phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello?" I answered, distracted, thinking it was a client or a telemarketer. But the voice on the other end was calm and strange. "Mrs. Lan, I'm sorry to call you like this, but I think our husbands are seeing the same woman." For a second, the world stopped. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I did, instantly. "I'm Trin. My husband works with yours. I found messages, pictures, and your husband's name kept appearing." There was no screaming, no drama, just quiet devastation. We met the next day, 2 women with broken hearts and tired eyes, sitting in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. She slid her phone across the table. I didn't need to scroll far. Hung's face was there, smiling, holding hands with a woman who looked barely 30. They were on a beach. I recognized the background. It was a business trip he said he couldn't miss. She's a new hire, junior marketing executive, Trin said, eyes narrowed. My husband fell for her lies, just like yours. That night, after I got home, I didn't confront him. I didn't ask questions. I simply opened a folder on my laptop, a folder I had named Backup. Inside, screenshots of suspicious messages, credit card statements, hotel reservations, bank transfers to an unfamiliar name, photos from a private investigator I hired 3 months ago. I had everything, because deep down, I had already known, but I needed to be sure. And now I was. He came home past midnight. I heard the key turn, the sound of his shoes on the tile, the pause in the hallway, as if he was waiting to see if I was asleep. I stayed in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The storm wasn't coming. It had already arrived. I didn't leave him that night. I didn't scream or throw things. I watched him sleep beside me. The man I once loved more than myself. Now a stranger with a familiar face. And I made a decision. I wouldn't crumble. I would prepare. It started with quiet steps. I opened a separate bank account at a small branch across town, under my maiden name. Every week, I transferred a little money, grocery change, freelance payments, birthday gifts I never spent. It wasn't much at first, but it was mine. Then I enrolled in an online course, interior design, something I had always loved but never pursued. Hung used to laugh when I mentioned it. Who would hire a middle-aged housewife to redecorate anything? He once joked. But I did it anyway. Late at night, while he slept or texted someone else, I studied. I sketched floor plans. I watched tutorials. I learned how color affects emotion, how lighting transforms space. And slowly, I began to take on small projects. A friend needed help refreshing her living room. I offered. She was thrilled. Another friend saw the result and asked for her office to be redone. Within months, I had a portfolio, a tiny website, and, without telling anyone, a growing list of clients. On the outside, nothing changed. I still made dinner. I still did the laundry. I still smiled during family dinners with our daughter. But inside, I was building a different kind of life, one brick at a time. I started keeping a journal, not to vent, but to plan. Every page was a strategy. What I wanted, what I would no longer tolerate, who I wanted to be. I even made a checklist: own a business, hire a lawyer, protect my daughter, protect myself. Then came the night he asked for a divorce. It was almost anticlimactic. "Lon," he said, not meeting my eyes, "I think we both know this isn't working anymore. I want out." I sipped my tea, calm, still. "All right," I said. He blinked. He wasn't expecting that. "That's it?" "No," I replied, sliding an envelope across the table. "This is from my lawyer. Inside, legal documents, proof of his affair, financial records." He looked pale. You were planning this?" I smiled. For the first time in a long time, it reached my eyes. I was preparing. There's a difference. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Turns out, he had no idea the house was in my name. A gift from my father, registered before we even married. The car, paid for from my private account. The bank account? Empty, except for the salary that barely covered his lifestyle. The photos, the texts, the timelines. My lawyer said it was one of the cleanest divorce cases she had ever handled. In my favor. And through it all, I didn't shed a single tear. Not because I wasn't hurt, but because I had already done my grieving. Now, it was time to rebuild. What Hung never understood was this: he didn't just betray a wife. He awakened a woman who had forgotten how strong she really was. After the papers were signed, I didn't throw a party. I didn't post cryptic quotes on social media. I didn't even tell most people what had happened. I simply exhaled. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. My daughter hugged me that morning. "Are you okay, Mom?" I smiled at her, truly, deeply. "I think I'm finally going to be." I rented a small space downtown, just 2 rooms really. A sunlit studio with a chipped floor and leaky faucet. But to me, it felt like the grandest palace. I painted the walls myself, bought secondhand furniture, and printed a sign: Land Design Studio, transforming spaces, restoring souls. At first, I only had a few clients: single moms, divorced women, widows, women who had been through fires. Just like me. We didn't just talk about curtains or paint colors. We talked about healing, how it starts in the corners of your space, how a brighter lamp or softer rug can slowly mend something inside. Then the invitations came. A friend asked me to speak at a women's retreat. Another invited me to a panel on post-divorce empowerment. I was hesitant. I wasn't a speaker, I told them. But they disagreed. "You're living proof." One night, after one of those talks, I came home to my little apartment and made tea. The same way I used to during the darkest nights. Except this time, the silence felt peaceful. My phone buzzed. It was Hungarian. She left me. I made a mistake. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. And this time, I smiled. Not out of revenge. Not because he was suffering, but because I felt nothing. I called him. His voice trembled. He asked if we could meet. "Just talk," he said. "I'm not angry, Hung," I told him. "I just don't need to go back. I hope you find peace, but I've already found mine." I hung up the phone, turned off the lights, and sat in my studio, surrounded by colors, fabrics, soft music, and silence. Not the silence of a broken marriage, but the silence of a woman who has rebuilt herself from ashes. These days, I don't chase happiness. I design it, one room, one corner, one breath at a time, because I finally understand. I never lost my husband. I lost the illusion of safety. And in return, I found me. The real me. The strong, quiet, powerful me who doesn't need permission to shine. Sometimes, the end of a love story is the beginning of your own.